It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Welcome to my takeout, my Emil Amok takeout. Of course, we're going to talk about Maduro. We're going to talk about Venezuela. I almost said Valenzuela, like I was thinking about the Dodger pitcher. Venezuela, right? The 51st state, right? Oh, are we going to go that far? That's what makes it comic. I exaggerated there. But this is a serious matter. We're going to take it seriously, but we're also going to joke a little bit because when President Trump continues to say we're going to run Venezuela, that's got to trouble all of us and got to make us a little nutty, especially those of us who know what it's like when America has that twinkle in its eye when it looks at your ancestral home, like Grenada, like the Philippines, like Libya, like any other place that you want to mention. There is no shortage of places where American intervention, American action. But we really have to talk about the big daddy. We got to talk about imperialism, right? We got to talk about this Venezuelan action, illegal that it is an example of Trump's nouveau imperialism, right? What else could it be? And Filipino Americans know the feeling. I mean, if you know Filipino history, you know the feeling of this nouveau imperialism that we're seeing played out in America since Saturday. I'm going to get to that here on this show. I mean, really, what else can you say? Now, you're saying, Emil, it was a law enforcement action. Yeah, I know the law enforcement. Oh, but it's also a military action. I don't know any time a law enforcement went in there with so many bombs and weaponry and to go and apprehend one man and his wife. Yeah, this is not a law enforcement. We know law enforcement actions, right? The Gulf War, right? They always said, "Oh, Saddam Hussein, that's law enforcement. We're Osama bin Laden, law enforcement." No, it's an act of war, and that's why I'm wearing camo. I mean, not just because it's a little redundant, when you're already invisible, but I'm wearing camo because we are in an act of war, and no one told us about it. And no one told even the Gang of Eight, which is the leadership of Congress. None of it. And what was the excuse? They said, well, they'll just leak. Well, I know they've got urinary problems, but they're not going to leak something like this. That is not an issue. But they made it, oh, we're going to make this top secret. No one's going to leak. We're going to do it. And just think about, just broadly, why this is happening. Could it be happening because tomorrow is January 6th and everyone would like to forget January 6th when Donald Trump pretty much admitted that, yes, he lost the election. Well, he didn't admit that, but he had to confront the fact that he lost the election. And what did he do about it? Well, he tried to steal it back and he tried to get people to do his bidding. And that was on January 6th, 2021. Tomorrow, are we going to forget about that because now we have this major distraction? Venezuelan, America is about to go imperial on us. So we got Venezuela as a distraction for January 6th, as a distraction from the Epstein files. Oh, a million extra documents in the Epstein files. A million. This is a distraction. Are we going to have this Venezuela as a distraction over? Oh, how much did you pay for gas today? I know they're saying, oh, gas prices are going down, but I paid like $4, $4.25 where I am in California. I mean, how about did you pay your utility bill this month? I had an $800 utility bill. How about your health care costs? Were you on Obamacare? Were you on ACA? Did your premiums go up? Fortunately, I'm on Medicare for all, right? All the old people. And so I don't have to worry about that. But I know people who are on ACA and they were saying, hey, our premiums went up like $1,400. And we have lousier insurance. So this is a distraction. Venezuela is a distraction. Venezuela is a distraction. January 6th is tomorrow on Tuesday. And hey, what better distraction to say, hey, we are America, right? And read my column on Substack or read my column in Assam News because this is serious. This is serious here. Uh, Trump's act of nouveau imperialism, Filipino Americans know the feeling. And it also is really talking about this is the guy, right, who doesn't want thick blood running through his heart, right? Oh, I want the thin blood. I want the thin blood, right? Doesn't make sense. But that's what he said before he went on the attack. I mean, even Bush era Iran Contra player Elliot Abrams was on television over the weekend. And he's one of the Iran Contra players I happened to interview when I was, at NPR. And he says governing Venezuela doesn't make sense. So what are we going to do? I think how I dealt with the shock of this is that I was in my humor mode. I was writing jokes. And I just think that a one joke really does help us understand all the boneheaded actions that we've seen over the last few days, starting on Saturday, and the continuation of Trump to say we're going to run Venezuela. And this is Emil Amok's beauty pageant theory. Which country, right? And Donald Trump loves the women. He loves the women. I love the women. He loves the women. He knows the women. Trust Donald Trump when he's talking about women, right? Donald Trump owned the Miss Universe pageant. Now, which country is number one when it comes to beauty queens? At number two is the United States with something like 14 of the big four beauty pageant winners. Like, number two. And they're tied with the Philippines. And that must irk Donald Trump because the Philippines is like America's first colony, which is another connection to this story and why Filipinos and Asian Americans should feel very hypersensitive to this imperial talk. And who is number one with 24 big four beauty queen pageant winners? Venezuela. Venezuela, Venezuela. Look, this is my Emil Amok beauty pageant theory of why Donald Trump has done what he's done. And I will suggest that it is as good an explanation as anything out there. It's as good an explanation. You'll say, oh, come on, Emil. You're full. No, and it's better than the real explanation. If you read my column, I say the real explanation clearly is there's oil. There's oil in Venezuela, untapped oil reserves. They've got more oil in Venezuela than they do in Saudi Arabia, than they do in the UAE, than they do anywhere. More than in Russia. And why hasn't those oil reserves? Why haven't they been tapped? They haven't been tapped because Venezuela nationalized the oil, and then essentially said, "Hey, we're going to do it now. You can't come in here." They nationalized it, which is really a Trump thing to do, right? To nationalize things and make people pay tariffs for the oil that you export, right? But they didn't have the money. Now, that's pretty incompetent to have all that oil and then don't have the money so you can, you can make the ton of money on oil. And in fact, this has not gone unnoticed by the Trump administration, which has called this like the biggest theft of American wealth when they kicked out the American oil companies. I mean, this is the way the United States sees it. Oh, that's our money in there. That's our oil. That's our resources. We got to go in there and get it. So, of course, Donald Trump and his cronies didn't tell Congress. They didn't get permission to go in and do this act of war. But what they did do is they told the oil companies, and the oil companies are their partners. This is Donald Trump and his cronies looking out for themselves, for the wealth of Venezuela. That's what I mean, you could say, yeah, blood for oil. That's what this is. And 40 Venezuelans died in that attack over the weekend. Fortunately, no Americans did. Some were injured, but no one died, according to the reports. But this is the situation. It is blood for oil. And that may be the real excuse that no one, well, people are talking about it. But what does the Trump administration say? Oh, it's the fentanyl. No, no, the fentanyl, not enough fentanyl comes out of Venezuela to the United States. Oh, it's the cocaine. Well, they got him on narco terrorism charges, but more cocaine, 7 times more cocaine comes out of Guatemala than Venezuela. So this is very selective to go after one man, Maduro. And the best thing that I heard this morning was that NBC reported that they said that Maduro's public dancing upset the United States. Public dancing. The video. I mean, look, Maduro's public dancing, I'm sure they were doing it in Venezuela to just to mimic, hey, Donnie Babe has the YMCA and the Trump dance, and Maduro has his dance because Maduro is the strongman of Venezuela. He's the Venezuelan Trump, right? I mean, the comparison has been made, but that was said that did it. We gotta get him out. No public dancing. What do you think? This is like Waco, Texas, or something? No public dancing. So the real reason may be the oil. They're not really saying it, although they say, oh, we're going to get the oil companies going, that we're going to run Venezuela. The people who are actually running it, Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, they said, Rubio was on Meet the Press, and he said, well, we're not running it, a policy. Well, what else is there? If you're running policy, you're running it, right? You've established a puppet government. Delcy Rodriguez said, oh, there's only one president, Maduro. Initially, she said that, but now I guess she's changed her tune because she is a willing puppet now. She was just sworn in today. Maduro was indicted. Well, he was indicted when the papers went out, but he appeared before the judge, pled not guilty, and he and his wife he went on into a thing trying to defend himself. The judge cut him off, but he said he was a man of God. A man of God. Well, who have we heard that from? He is like the Latino mirror of Donald Trump, and we'll have to see if that works. We'll just have to see if that works. I don't know if it works, but so you see all the different excuses to go in. Oh, law enforcement. Yeah, that's a lie. There's a lot of more cocaine coming out of Guatemala than 3 times. I mean, you might like thousands of tons coming out of Guatemala, and like a couple hundred coming out of Venezuela. And while we're not going after Guatemala, or are we? Is this the beginning of the drug war against all of Latin America? And who's going to authorize that? I mean, really, the term that has been used over the last couple of weeks has been to use the Monroe Doctrine, which is an 1823 document from President James Monroe saying, hey, we're in the Western Hemisphere. You allies, you stay in Europe. Or they weren't allies back then. They were just saying, the European folks who are colonizers, you stay in your hemisphere, we'll stay in ours. I guess, is this Donald Trump marking his territory, lifting his leg and marking all of the Western Hemisphere? It's nice that he does it that way, but that was a thing from 1823. I mean, the world has changed. It's not East and West, hemisphere. But maybe this is the way Donald Trump justifies all his actions, saying, Putin, you can have the Eastern Hemisphere, and we'll be on the West, and China will have to deal with you separately. But maybe you can be okay with whatever you want to do because we're all strong men. We're all the strong, except Maduro. We're going to take Maduro. He's not the strong man of the West. I mean, because you got to think of the consequences. What's going to happen when Russia understands, oh, well, wait a minute. Trump is doing this, and that means I guess it's okay to go into Ukraine and take it. Oh, well, isn't Ukraine a sovereign? Yeah. Well, but look at what Trump is doing to Venezuela. Well, aren't they a sovereign country? Yeah. Well, shoot, if Trump is doing that, and then meanwhile the Chinese are saying, well, I guess with Taiwan, I guess we could just our naval exercises can just turn into full out. This is what we're doing. We're going to take Taiwan because if Trump did this to Venezuela, well, and if Putin did this to Ukraine, we can go get a sovereign. I'm telling you, these are the issues. Global chaos. And global chaos for what? For what reason? For oil, for, geopolitical moves, like who takes over what. If you want the explanation, my explanation is the Emil, Amok, Donald Trump beauty queen theory. It's as good and as valid as anything else. Venezuela has more beauty queens of the big four pageants than any other country. Oh, far, far more than the United States. In fact, the United States is just second to the Philippines. Second to the Philippines. 14. Venezuela, 24. Not on my watch, Donald Trump says. You're not. I used to own the Miss Universe pageant. You're not going to do this on my watch, Maduro. And you're not going to dance. You're not going to dance. Forget it, Maduro. You're not going to dance. I'm just saying that makes as much sense as anything else I've heard. That just makes as much sense as anything else I've heard. And, you know, gotta switch my keys here. So Maduro and my Venezuelan beauty queen theory, until I hear someone else say something, I'm right, everyone else is wrong. That's just the way a dictator does things, right? And we got to get used to dictatorship because that's the model. It's not democracy is not the model. I mean, how many people are saying, "Oh, democracy, our democratic values"? That's why you got to talk about this. You got to say, "Hey, wait a minute, we got some democratic principles here to uphold." We do. So, I mean, that's what's crazy about this whole thing. What kind of democratic principles are we? We don't have any democratic principles anymore. We're saying democracy, cronyism, oil companies, come get your oil. And, all right, people read Axios. They read Axios. People who follow the news don't have time for anything else. And they point out Trump officials are framing this weekend's shock operation in Venezuela as law enforcement rather than warfare. Oh, no. This is warfare. That's why I'm wearing camo. I'm wearing camo because to enhance my invisibility. It's an enhancement. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said yesterday on Meet the Press on NBC, we are at war against drug trafficking organizations, not a war against Venezuela. Could have fooled me. You could have fooled me. How about CBS? They talked to a guy who worked with Venezuela on negotiations on hostages, on people that Venezuela has taken, no longer with the government. And it was about as softball a story to justify law enforcement and to justify, and say it's not a war, but Scott Pelley, who I have known in a previous life, when we worked together in Dallas, Scott Pelley asked him, well, did you send a message to your Venezuelan friends? And I said, yeah, cooperate. Oh my God. I nearly 60 Minutes, the paragon of journalism, but under Barry Weiss, it is a a wing of the Trump administration, and the Barry Weiss CBS News 60 Minutes has Scott Pelley, who, well, you might have some respect for him. I'm mixed because I know him. He asked this question of this source who had worked with the Venezuelan. He said, "Yeah, I sent a message. I said, you ought to cooperate. You ought to cooperate. Cooperating is not the way. Cooperating is saying, yes, be a puppet government of the United States." What happened to democracy? What happened? So that was on 60 Minutes. The White House, back to the Axios. The White House directed Axios to Rubio's recent interview with the Washington Post, where he had promised lawmakers to get congressional approval before conducting military strikes for military purposes. In other words, as has been pointed out by other congressional members, Marco Rubio has lied. Marco Rubio lied before Congress saying we would go before you to tell you what's going on. He did not. So you got all these lies. Fentanyl's in there. No. Fentanyl. More fentanyl comes from Mexico and China, not Venezuela. Oh, the cocaine. Oh, no. More cocaine comes out of Guatemala. Oh, okay. There's no regime change. That's what Marco Rubio said. There's going to be no regime change. No, that was a lie. We got a regime change today. We got Delcy Rodriguez saying, "I'm the new acting president." She was sworn in. So we got regime change, we got lying, and we just don't know what's next because Donald Trump says we're running the country. If we're running the country, Marco Rubio says, just policy, then we have a puppet government. We're running the country. And Filipino Americans should be upset because you got to remember, this is not just decapitating a head and, you know, and saying, oh, we're going to install a government of the people. In fact, the Constitution of Venezuela says they need free elections. So you got to have free elections first, or you're going to have the oil companies go in, rape the country, get the money. Oh, it's oil. It's blood for oil. That's it. That's it. Or I like my explanation. It's really the beauty queens. Donald Trump is doing it for the beauty queens. Venezuela, more beauty queens than the big four. He used to run beauty pageants. He used to run Miss Universe. You know, he had to be, oh, we're going to get all their oil. No, we're going to get all their beauty queens. They'll all be wearing a sash that says Miss USA, Miss America. Oh, you know, that has to be a turn on for the guy because he's got thin blood. He's got thin blood. It's got to be a turn on for him. So, the question is, what's next? Lawmakers are going to be briefed this evening. I saw Ted Lieu, who hardly goes on the air these days, but Ted Lieu, congressman out of L.A., good to see him. Hope he's well. He sounded well. He said this is illegal. That's the tone. That's the word. What is this illegal strike, all about? And why weren't we told? And there should be a debate in Congress. The people should be told. And if you are suffering from the affordability crisis because your health care, your premiums, if you're concerned about all the costs of living in the United States, I mean, are they going to deport us all to Venezuela? I mean, that could be a possibility. I'm telling you, this is where we find ourselves in 2026. You thought 2026 was going to be easy. It's not easy. And it's another part of our backward step in America. I mean, we reverse abortion rights and civil rights and all these liberties and trans rights. And I mean, we're going to go backwards on this at some point. I mean, we got back for tariffs to the 19th century. Now we're going to go back on this. And, oh, heaven help us. Birthright citizenship. Asian Americans are especially critical of what Trump is trying to do to reverse the 14th Amendment. But hey, we're going back to the 19th century, where the Wong Kim Ark case upheld birthright citizenship. You know, Wong Kim Ark, the Chinese American born in San Francisco, went to China, came back, was refused to enter because they said he was Chinese. He fought it, went to the Supreme Court. They sided with him. That law has been, it's been the law since 1898. Donald Trump wants to reverse it. We're going back to the 19th century. The 19th century. Oh, that's great. The 19th century. And at the turn of the 19th century, Filipinos know what happened. 1898, Spanish American War, Treaty of Paris. The U.S. bought the Philippines, said, we're going to run this thing. They went in and ran it. The Filipinos said, no, 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 no. We're going to start our own democracy, the first democracy in Asia. And they fought. They fought the U.S. They don't teach this war, but it's the war that Emilio Aguinaldo fought. I know he's somewhat disgraced, but he fought it, and the U.S. won the U.S.-Philippine War, 1899 to 1902. A million Filipinos died, and then American imperialism was born, the first colony. People don't want to go back to 1898, but it stands to reason. We're back at the 19th century. People want to stop it. Oh, remember Obama and Libya? Yeah, Obama admits that was a mistake. Or remember Grenada, Reagan and Grenada? Then also remember Iraq, Iran. Remember Iraq, Saddam Hussein. Remember Osama bin Laden, Afghanistan. We have done a number of things as military actions, justified as law enforcement. Hasn't worked. You know why? Because people of that country get a little nationalistic pride. I mean, unless you cut up the pie and give more to them than you do to your cronies, then people might be taken aback at you raping their country and taking over from afar. They may be, well, as Americans, we know we revolted against Britain. We know the problems. Will the Venezuelans cooperate? You know, even here in Philippine history, the Filipinos cooperated. There were some Filipinos who cooperated, and the rest of the Filipinos, like my dad, said, I'm going to America. That was one of the biggest migrations of the Filipinos to America while the U.S. held the Philippines as a colony. But, I mean, it's after 1898, 1902, Filipinos started coming to the United States. My father came in the 20s. That's my story. But it's all because of this strange geopolitics that my father had a hand in changing. He had a hand in changing it. And if you see my show, Emil Amok 69, it's coming at the SF Playground. If you're watching me, if you go to playgroundsf.vbotickets.com and look for 69 Emil Amok, a real journalist stands up, you get tickets. It's on January 17th is the first show. And then I do 4 shows in January into February. And then I do a whole comedy thing in March. So check that out. Emil Amok 69. And I explain how my father's a hero and how he learned about that. Right now, I don't know. I'm gonna talk about where we are as a country, because where we are as a country is just in a very, very strange place. We are Are we the paragon of democracy anymore? Are we the leaders of the free world? Well, free enough. Some of the free world, certainly not all. Are they free in Venezuela? Here's the thing that we didn't install a new government. So chances are in Venezuela, they're going to have the same old, which is the Maduro folks. And if you look at Venezuela now, or before the U.S. went in, it was seen as one of the most repressive countries around because Maduro, I mean, he was a he was like a Latino Trump. He used the military to repress his people. He arrested and disappeared more than 2,400 people, according to reports. I mean, Maduro is not a good guy, but do we replace him? And why do we replace him? And do we replace him with the legitimate government that was elected? Because Maduro, is a verified election thief. That's sort of like Donald Trump. And yet, the guy who was elected from the party that people voted for, he's not even being considered for anything, and he's out of it. And the real leader of the party, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, she's in exile somewhere, and she's not considered. Donald Trump said, "Oh, her, that Nobel Peace Prize is mine. Should have been me." Now look, we went in and peacefully took Venezuela. I'm telling you, none of it makes sense. The only thing that makes sense is my Donald Trump beauty queen pageant theory, which is he was jealous. Venezuela had almost twice the number of beauty queens of the big four pageants. And Donald Trump has an eye. He knows he has an eye for beauty queens. He knows his beauty queens. I mean, when you consider all the other things that people are saying, it makes about as much sense as anything else when Donald Trump says, we're going to run Venezuela. We're going to run Venezuela. Yeah, but why? But why? All right. It was a tough Saturday. Tough Saturday for me. And I will say this. 40, if you're a 49er fan, oh my God. Did they not show up or they just look bad? They look bad. I was wanting to look for more competitive football throughout the weekend. That Steeler game was great. Too bad for the kicker from Baltimore, missing that last second field goal. But that was a great last quarter. 49ers, I don't know. They got to go on the road. It's hard when you're already taxed as much as the 49ers in terms of their physical ability because of injury. You got to wonder if they're one and done. Maybe they get by the Eagles. That'll be sweet revenge for having lost to the Eagles a couple of years ago. Those years when when Purdy was hot and came on strong and then hurt his hand and couldn't play. So I don't know. All right, so the 49ers lost. Venezuela was lost. But the key thing on Saturday, we put down my dog. And that was sad. So all in all, Saturday was terrible. And when you put down a dog, I had the nicest vet came and made a house call, and it was very, very sweet. But it had to happen. It had to happen. And, they say your dogs help you deal with death, help you deal with things that happen. Death, though, yes. And also the death of democracy in Venezuela. The death of democracy a little bit here. Every action that Donald Trump takes is the death of democracy. So I think about my big black dog and how she went down, and it gives me a way to deal with that terrible Saturday we just had. It really does. It really does. Anyway, check out my column on Substack, Emil Amok's Takeout. Emil Amok's Takeout, name of my Substack newsletter. My column on ASAM News, also Inquirer.net. And I'm telling you, I'm pushing the beauty queen theory. If someone asks you to say, oh, yeah, Emil says it's because Trump was jealous that Venezuela had twice the number of beauty queens that America and the Philippines had, and clearly. That's why it had to be done. That's why it had to be done. That's my story. That's the story. All right, tomorrow's January 6th. This is the big distraction, of course, right? Because then how many people are going to be talking about January 6th? If you can't get excited about January 6th, you can't get excited about Donald Trump pardoning all the January 6th convicts. Well, are you going to get excited about the death of democracy with America's nouveau imperialism? Probably not, but maybe you should. Maybe you should. All right, that's it. We like to end our shows with a little loving kindness. Oh, before that, don't forget my show, Emil Muck 69, How I Deal with My Trump Derangement Syndrome. It's at the Petro stage, January 17th. 4 shows, but all different times. Go to playground SF playground SF.vbotickets.com, and you'll get information on tickets. All right, that's it for our show today. Hey, look, thank you for listening. We like to end all our shows with a little loving kind. I have so many gurus. Listen to my gurus all the time on tape, on live sometimes. Sharon Salzberg, I like her. She has the loving kindness meditation. It goes like this. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time. Mahal